Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's really good to see some of your faces, some of your screenshots amongst other things, but thanks for joining us nonetheless. As Dr. Waller mentioned, I'm Dr. Jonathan Brown, the Assistant Provost and Assistant Vice President, Faculty Diversity and Recruitment, and Associate Professor here at the Rochester Institute of Technology. And joining me today are, of course, the team that does it all. First, start with my Assistant Director, Lorraine Steinbeiser. Lorraine, if you would like to say a few words.
Sure thing. Welcome everyone, and thanks again for joining us. I'm excited to kind of go over this presentation and some information with you, and certainly open to any and all of your questions, and hopefully we can get through this and answer anything that you have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lorraine. And last but certainly not least, the task manager, the taskmaster, if you will, Maria Vega.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Fantastic. Well, we represent the Office of Faculty Diversity and Recruitment, and our sole job is to bring excellent and diverse candidates to the university by way of introducing you to our search committees, giving you an opportunity to find discipline-specific faculty and fellowship opportunities here at the Rochester Institute of Technology, but also to engage in conversations such as this, thinking about ways in which you make the transition from graduate student or postdoc to faculty member. And so today's conversation will hit upon two areas in particular. First and foremost, Lorraine will begin with a conversation about the Rochester Institute of Technology, just in case you're not familiar with who we are and where we are. And then on that point, we will go a little bit further to talk about you, my insight and advice and thoughts about how to make that transition from graduate student to assistant professor, and providing some tips and useful advice along the way. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Lorraine, who will begin our conversation.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Just going to go ahead and get this presentation shared with you guys. I think you can see that, right? Okay, great. Thanks again. So yeah, it's great to have so many of you on the call today with us. One of the things I just wanted to, as Jonathan alluded to, we're going to talk a little bit about RIT and Rochester in general. So again, if there are questions, just put them in the chat box, and if we can't answer them as we go along, we can certainly answer them at the end. So one of the questions we always get asked is, where exactly is Rochester? So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the greater upstate New York area, we are in the western part of the New York State. We are, you know, I guess closer to the Buffalo Canadian border than we are to New York City, although New York City is only maybe about 5-6 hour drive away. So we're not in the New York City area, so that gives us a lot of perks in terms of our cost of living. And we're a smaller size city, with a really kind of a big city feel, I guess, to it, is how we like to describe ourselves. So we're on the shores of one of the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario. We're just outside of the Finger Lakes region, which is a nice kind of destination area for a lot of people that come to the upper New York State area. And so, as you can see on the map here, we're not that far away, again, from a short drive away from places like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, New York, and when the borders are open, you can get to Toronto, Canada in just about 3 hours or so. So it's a convenient location to be, and it's a great area for, you know, weekend trips if that's what you're looking to do. One of the other questions we get a lot of, especially this time of year, is what about the cold and the snow? So, you know, of course, yes, it does snow up here. Yes, it is cold. Right now, we, you know, have a significant amount of snow on the ground, probably over 10 inches. And it is pretty cold, but we still go out. We still enjoy things outdoors. You know, it's not, I guess it's not uncommon to see in my neighborhood people out running, you know, during the day, in the morning time, in this type of weather. So people still go outside, get their exercise. We have lots of things to do: skiing, snowshoeing, sledding is a great one. We have a lot of hills here for sledding and skiing. And really, you know, unlike other places that may get, you know, if they get an inch or so of snow on the ground, they might have to shut down because of snow and ice. We have, you know, the plows and the means to be able to remove that snow, get it all cleared off, and get back on the roads. So it's very rare that the schools shut down. It's very rare that RIT itself shuts down. And certainly having a four-wheel drive car and a good pair of boots and mittens or gloves certainly can help out in this type of weather. So the city of Rochester itself has a population of just about over 200,000 people, and the greater Rochester area has over 1 million people in it. So again, like I mentioned, it's a smaller sized city, but it still has that big city feel to it because of the number of people in the surrounding areas, surrounding towns. We're a highly skilled and educated population. We have over 60% of our adults here in the area have some college education. And the housing market in Rochester is very affordable when you compare it to some of the other larger cities in the Northeast. Even in the midst of this pandemic, we have one of the hottest housing markets in the nation, actually. So the housing prices are affordable, and there's a lot of inventory as well. One of the things I did want to point out to you is that Rochester has the highest deaf population per capita in the nation. That's partly due to the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which is hosted here at RIT. So it's not uncommon for us to see individuals using American Sign Language to communicate when you're out at a restaurant or within a store. So you don't just see that here on RIT's campus, but you can see it in the community. We're also filled with rich cultural institutions. We have minor league sports teams, Philharmonic. We have local theaters that do not only local shows, but also host traveling Broadway shows. And we have a nationally recognized children's museum and so many other festivals that go on in the summertime, including the large-scale International Jazz Festival, which they just announced today is going to be hosted at RIT this year. So that is going to be pretty interesting for the campus to host that. Now, here on this slide, you're going to see this is our kind of classic downtown skyline. So this is downtown city of Rochester at night, all lit up. We have the Genesee River that runs right through the city. So kind of that's that reflection that you're seeing on the bottom of this picture here. So it's just to give you an idea what the downtown area looks like. RIT is about 6 miles or so south of downtown Rochester, also just along the Genesee River itself. So the campus of RIT is flanked on one side by the Genesee River. The U.S. News and World Report have recently rated Rochester to be the 66th best place to live. And I talked about housing in the previous slide, but also our rental market is pretty affordable as well. Most recently, I noted that it's a $970 median rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. A lot of the buildings that you see in this photo here on the screen have been converted from office buildings to residential and retail establishments. The higher end lofts and apartments in some of these some of these buildings can range anywhere between $1,500 to $2,500, but you can certainly find affordable 1-bedroom apartments in some of the towns outside of downtown for as low as $800 in a nice neighborhood. And I mentioned the Finger Lakes before too. One of the Finger Lakes is probably best known for their wine. It's a wine region, and one of their best known wines that come out of the region is the Riesling. So again, the Finger Lakes have been named as one of the best wine regions in the U.S. So it's another kind of like little perk to our living in our areas. You can go down for a nice, drive around one of the Finger Lakes and hit up about 10 or 12 wineries if you have a designated driver. There's also a great, for those of you who don't do wine, there's also a great craft brewery industry here as well in the Rochester Finger Lakes area. So now I've covered a little bit about the Rochester area, kind of hopefully got you a little acclimated to what our city is like. I want to talk to you now about a little bit more about RIT itself. RIT was founded in 1829. It was founded in the city of Rochester, and it was originally known as the Rochester Athenaeum. It merged with the Mechanics Institute before renaming itself the Rochester Institute of Technology, and then subsequently moving to its location where it currently is housed, or where we currently are. And I kind of just mentioned all of that to kind of lay the foundation for you that RIT is rooted in engineering and technology all the way back to its founding. So we have a very strong engineering and technical aspect to our institution, but we also have liberal arts, we also have business, we have a College of Science, we have art and design. So there's a lot more that goes into that. But so when you hear about, I guess, a technology institute, we're a little bit more comprehensive than just engineering and technology. We have about 19,000 students within RIT. The number includes our international campuses. So here in the Rochester, New York campus, we have about 15,000 undergrad and graduate students. We have 11 colleges and institutes, which we'll go over a little bit later on in this presentation. And our faculty ratio, student to faculty ratio is 12:1. So we are a large institution, but yet we have that small faculty staff ratio. So we don't tend to see a lot of large 200-300 seminar classrooms. We have more of that faculty student interaction, and it's not uncommon for our faculty to be engaging in our research projects with our undergrad students as well as obviously our graduate students. The faculty work to balance those expectations of teaching, research, and service along the way. So here I just listed out here all the types of all the colleges that we have within RIT. We pride ourselves in being at the intersection of art, design, and technology. So it wouldn't be out of the norm to see our art students from our College of Art and Design taking computing classes, or engineering majors to be taking business classes. So there's that mix of physical and social sciences, engineering, art, design, humanities, business, computing, and other technology disciplines within all of our colleges. One of the colleges I mentioned previously is the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. It's home to the world's first and largest technical college for deaf and hard of hearing students. We have more than 1,100 students, the deaf and hard of hearing students from all over the world study within NTID. And it's not uncommon for those individuals, those students, to also be taking classes with and alongside our hearing students. So those deaf and hard of hearing students are integrated into a lot of the programs within RIT, and they're supported through interpreters, captionists, and note takers. So as a faculty member, you might be teaching a course and have a number of deaf students in there that will be supported by interpreters or captionists for their classes. We also have a number of international campuses. So I just want to talk a little bit about those. We have locations in Dubai, Croatia, Kosovo, and China. And so these are opportunities not only for our students to be able to participate in being able to do study abroad or programs within those colleges or in countries, but it's also an opportunity for faculty members. As a faculty member, you can travel and teach at one of the international campuses. Through our Office of International Education, you can also lead a study abroad program. We have one that's been going on for several years, longer than I've been here. It's our annual trip to the Galapagos. Of course, some of these aren't happening this year, but they certainly will be going as soon as they can. The annual trip to Galapagos is a faculty-led program. We've had another one, the nutritional research study program that went to Ghana, a video game design and development experience that went on in Germany. So there's a number of different programs that you can work with our International Education Office to pull together different types of programs and opportunities for your students. And now this is one of the programs that I've been running for several years now, is our Future Faculty Career Exploration Program. Maybe you guys might have heard of this. I know there's been a couple of individuals from Virginia Tech that have participated in this program. It's a 4-day program that really gives you a behind the scenes glimpse into life as a faculty member at RIT. We are currently in the process of accepting applications for the program. And traditionally we host anywhere from 15 to 20 people, scholars and artists on campus. Last year we did it in a virtual modality. We didn't miss a beat. We just transitioned over to virtual mode. But it's an opportunity for you to explore potential career opportunities within RIT and the professoriate itself. It gives you an opportunity to hone your interview skills, present your research or art, and kind of figure out what it is really that faculty members are involved with in a day-to-day basis through your through meeting with the dean, faculty members, and students within your host colleges and departments. We also offer through this program, as part of the program, professional development for the participants. So these are events led by our faculty to help you understand the tenure and promotion process, the importance of mentors and sponsors, advice from our first year faculty members. What are some things they wish they had known as they got into tenure track line? So we really expose you to all sorts of information within the colleges, within the Institute itself. And then we also like to have some time to be able to explore the Rochester area too. So if you decide that RIT is a place you want to pursue a faculty career, we want to make sure that when you're part of this program that you have a full understanding of what it is, not only to work at RIT, but to live in the Rochester area. So as I mentioned, we are currently open to applications. The call for applications is out, and applications this year are due on March 15th. If there's any questions about that program, like I said, we'll certainly answer those at the end. Oops, I skipped too far ahead. So just lastly, I wanted to highlight several of our initiatives that help with several of our initiatives within RIT that are meant to support and retain our faculty. We have programs that support pre-tenure, learning the tenure promotion process. We have programs, Council for the Representation and Engagement of Women Faculty that are specific for women. We have other programs that are geared towards underrepresented minority faculty. These are done through receptions or meet and greets. You have a chance to speak with and talk with the provost and the president. There's workshops that are sponsored by Academic Affairs or Diversity Education. We have informal writing and teaching circles. We offer grant writing boot camps and so much more. So there's a plethora of different programs that support our faculty. So once you're here as a faculty member, you're not just kind of dropped off in within your department or within your building and just kind of left to fend on your own. There's a number of different support programs that you can become involved with to be able to help you succeed here at RIT. So we want to make sure that once you've decided to make that choice to come to RIT, that we support your success and development and growth and to keep you happy and keep you to staying here at RIT. Oh, keep doing that. And the reason is because it's about you guys, right? It's all about, you as growing as a faculty member, getting the professional development and support and mentoring that you need in order for you to be successful. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brown to talk to you a little bit more in depth about making that transition from graduate student to faculty member.
Thank you so very much, Lorraine, for covering a lot of the important details about the Rochester community, about RIT and our departments and beyond. One of the things I want to do is have a conversation leading you to presenting your best self, if you will. Oftentimes we provide this information and think, of course, that you know what to do with it. But oftentimes we find out that's not the case, and it's not your fault that you do not know. So one of the things I want to do with the time remaining for this afternoon is to talk about advice for compiling a competitive faculty application. What does that look like? What are things you can avoid doing? What are things you can do better? So I want to take just a few moments to really go over this slide in a little bit of detail to lead you along the way. Now, first and foremost, consult the strategic plan. Any institution you view, whether it's the Rochester Institute of Technology or otherwise, I would strongly encourage you to take a few moments, maybe perhaps longer than that, to review the strategic plan. Your question may be why? Why should I take time to read the strategic plan? Well, it's quite simple. The strategic plan could be another phrase of looking at it from the university blueprint, where the university sees itself in the next 5 years. This will give you insight as to not only our physical aspirations, whether it's building a new building or expanding our footprint overseas, but it also takes a moment to talk about where we see ourselves as an institution growing by way of academic departments, majors, or otherwise. It shows you our priorities over the next 5 years. And of course, where priorities are, as is the funding. So think about ways in which the strategic plan can really lead you to have a better understanding of a university, not only where you see the university today, but also within the next 5 years. Second, know your institutional audience. I can't stress this point enough. As an individual who has and continues to serve on search committees for years upon years, I can certainly tell you one of the greatest problems at hand is not knowing your institutional audience. What do I mean by that? Well, consider the following. You're applying for an institution that is teaching intensive, let's say. However, 2/3 to 3/4 of your cover letter is all geared toward teaching. Or I'm sorry, it should be, but it's not, but it's all geared toward research instead. Here is striking that right balance of knowing the institutional audience in which you're speaking to. In other words, if you're applying to a research-intensive university, then obviously you want to talk more about research. But if you're applying to an institution that is teaching heavy, take an opportunity to discuss that more thoroughly in your cover letter. The idea of one size fits all within the cover letter should be something that is completely dispelled from your memory, your thoughts, or otherwise aspirations. I know it's quicker to do, but trust me, there are individuals who are looking very carefully at your cover letter. So take a moment in time to really know your institutional audience and knowing that people are really, really destined upon learning more about you, so put your best foot forward. Next, consider creating a website. This is something that can help you a long way insofar as self-promotion. Not all the time will you see the Office of Graduate Studies or postdoctoral affairs with the time, personnel, or resources dedicated to promote you in the right light. So why not do it yourself? Consider ways in which you can create a website that talks about who you are as a scholar. Think about the presentations you've conducted, the articles you may have published, the courses you may have taught or served as a TA or otherwise. Things, of course, to build a profile, your online profile, something that is uniquely contributed to you beyond a picture or a web address or an email address we might find on your university's webpage. Next, think about this. The idea of ambiguity is not your friend. I can't tell you, I really can't, how many times I've read a cover letter and a CV, and none of them match up. The best example I can provide you is this. What is your graduation date? For example, let's start there. What is your anticipated defense date? We can go there as well. All too often, cover letters and CVs simply do not match up, by way of one, providing accurate dates, or two, simply not mentioning it at all. So when we think about ambiguity here, you're leaving a lot for us as search committees to guess, to play detective. And when that occurs, let me be abundantly clear about this. Anytime a search committee has to play detective as to finding out more information that's typically required within our application process, there's a nice paper basket we typically toss your application. It may sound harsh, but consider the following. If I'm trying to get through 120 applications for research, and I have a handful that simply don't provide the required information, either I'm looking to you to say, okay, well, who'd like to follow up with these 5 individuals, or we simply put it on the side, which means we may or may not come back to it. So think about that. Ambiguity is simply not your friend here because it's one way to find your application into the rejected bin quite easily. Finally, let's think about when you place your application, there's typically 3 statements that are required: research, diversity, and teaching statements. For us here at the Rochester Institute of Technology, these are requirements for our applications. They're requirements for our future faculty program as well. So let me spend just a few moments talking about the components of each statement. First and foremost, think about it, your research statement. Your research statement should really have a clearly defined articulation of your research interest, part 1. Part 2, your research statement should also provide a trajectory as to where you are now and where you see yourself in the future, oftentimes defined within the next 3 to 5 years. None of this is written in stone in as much as, let's say you identify several outlets that you wish to publish in, but 2 years later you don't for whatever reason. No one's going to hold you to that. The point here is to see how clearly you can articulate your research interest and expertise, but also this serves as a guidepost for many search committees to decide whether or not you have enough material, let's say, enough of a vision to meet our tenure and promotion requirements. So when we read research statements, one of the first things we look at is, one, again, your ability to clearly articulate your research interest and expertise. And two, whether or not you've reached that level of maturity where you can talk about, you can project where your research will go within the next 3 to 5 years. So always keep that in mind. Diversity statements. Now, there's 2 schools of thought on diversity statements, both I'll share with you now. First and foremost is that oftentimes diversity statements are accompanied by some sort of prompt. Please respond to the following prompt by way of appending a 1-page document. Or other times they're simply not. Here, search committees are really looking at, by way of diversity statements, your ability to articulate the ways in which you've interacted with diverse populations across the board. And here I would really ask individuals think about your volunteering opportunities, your time in the classroom, your time outside of the classroom. Think about ways in which you've contributed to groups and individuals who are from different backgrounds. Understanding, of course, that the American classroom will continue to quickly outpace where we were 10 years ago by way of student diversity. We're seeing a growth in students of color across the United States. We're seeing a growth in women applicants across the United States. So here's an opportunity for you to talk about your interest and, of course, the background you have in this area. Finally, teaching statements, critically important. Think about it this way. First and foremost, a question that many times appears within teaching statements is the following. What's your pedagogical approach? What's your teaching philosophy? What guides your interactions with students in the classroom? Think of it that way. Think of that as your leading statement in this regard. Is there a philosophical approach that you subscribe to when engaging with students? If so, let's talk about that. Use that as a discussion platform. The understanding here is that we're trying to get a better understanding from you, on paper, of course, how you interact with students and why. What guiding principles do you abide by? And so just think of it in that way. Next slide, please. Now, here's the great part about this. We've moved beyond the application process itself to talk about making the transition from graduate student to faculty. First and foremost, hear me loud and hear me clearly. Learn to say no. I sincerely mean it. You will be the individual who has no rank, no authority. And I don't want to say no respect. I won't go that far, but let's just go with rank and authority for the time being. Which means, of course, you will be asked to serve on every committee no one else wants to serve on. Okay? As I always say, whether it's the vending machine committee or the committee on committees, you will be asked to do it. And so think about ways in which you can protect your time and learn to say no. Second, knowing the rules of engagement. You're having a conversation with the Rochester Institute of Technology or otherwise, it would be in your best interest to know the rules of engagement by way of fully understanding the tenure and promotion requirements associated with that department or college. All too often, you'll be surprised to know that how many individuals don't know this information before committing to an interview. There's a saying, of course, in camping in the great outdoors, know before you go. And that's the advice I would provide you here. Know the information before you go for an interview, before you go for any sort of interaction that is about a job in particular. Ask the information, but ask for it in writing so you can see for yourself. I would highly encourage all of you to understand the tenure and promotion process and requirements, because you may find yourself in a situation where you're in love with the institution, but the tenure and promotion requirements may call for more research than you're comfortable with producing. It may call for more teaching by which you're uncomfortable with doing. So it's best to know before you go. Next, the importance of identifying mentors. What more can I say on that? You'll find yourself in so many precarious situations, from the initial offer negotiation to navigating your first year, your second year, amongst other things. This is really the importance of identifying mentors to assist you along the way. I want to be very clear in stating that no one does it alone. No one does it alone. And so here's an opportunity for you to think about individuals in your life who can serve as mentors, those individuals who can guide and move you throughout the process in a manner in which they can provide you substantive thought and feedback. One critical note when we think about mentors is simply this. Your mentors do not have to come from the same discipline as your own background. Think about it for a second. They don't. Additionally, your mentors can also be administrators. They don't necessarily have to be full-time faculty as well, because a lot of the experiences, many of our administrators at RIT are also faculty members as well. And so just think about that importance. Finally, easy does it. Easy does it, balancing teaching, service, and scholarship. I think all too often we find ourselves in situations where we're so excited, as we should be, about the first contract, about our first semester at a university in a new department, that we try to do it all. We try to create 3 new classes, 4 new classes. We try to work on that book proposal, that NSF grant proposal, while also advising 30 students. Don't. If you want to live to see year 2, don't. Now, obviously, the understanding here is that you need to find a balancing act. And this, in my opinion, really goes back to knowing the rules of engagement regarding tenure and promotion. What counts? Because obviously, if we think about teaching, service, and scholarship, for many institutions, they're not weighed equally. You may find yourself in a situation where scholarship counts for 55% of your dossier for tenure and promotion. Let that be your guiding light. 55% of your time should be spent on research, if not more. So think about the balancing act between teaching, service, and scholarship to note, of course, that not all 3 variables are weighted equally. Neither should your time in that respect. The importance of identifying mentors in the grander scheme of things is that they can walk you through the balancing act, knowing the rules of engagement for tenure and promotion, and of course, assisting you in ways in which you can say no when necessary. Go to the next slide, please. So here's an opportunity for you to think about ways in which you can join our Scholars Network if you haven't done so. I would really love for you to engage in this opportunity because our Scholars Network is a network that is dedicated to provide discipline-specific faculty and fellowship opportunities in addition to connecting you with our search committees. So for example, if you're a part of our Scholars Network right now, you would have received an email from Lorraine discussing our Future Faculty Career Exploration Program. Our portal is open. You would also receive notification that we'll be doing a Twitter chat on the same topic of our Future Faculty Program to provide you tips and insight for your application process, amongst other things. The Scholars Network is a great thing. As I said to you before, oftentimes you will hear directly from us. You'll hear directly from Lorraine, particularly when we think about discipline-specific opportunities. We'll contact you and provide you that information and engage in a conversation about those opportunities. Next slide, please. Finally, connect with us. We're all social beings, some more than others, some days of the week, but you can understand that. But we also post our faculty opportunities, our fellowship opportunities on our social media handles as well. So engage in us in that fashion. On that note, I am cognizant of time. So I will pause here, turn it back over to Dr. Waller and see if we have any questions. Dr. Waller, you are on mute.
You know, I'm used to that. So many Zoom meetings. But no, thank you all, Jonathan and your team for this excellent presentation. What we would like to do is ask the students to put their questions in the chat box, and we will start answering those questions, and we'll go from there. So go ahead and put your information or question in the chat box. While they are coming up with their questions, Jonathan, can you talk to us a little bit about your faculty trajectory and where did you start and that background?
Sure. So I earned my doctorate in Texas, and in doing so, I came back to Central New York. I should say that I earned my MA at Syracuse. I came back to Central New York to take on my first position at Ithaca College, where I was for just about a decade. During that initial decade, I've served in at least 3 administrative roles at the college and university level, while also being promoted and tenured to associate professor. It's a great life. I'm not going to kid you any fact of the matter. I've had wonderful opportunities to travel around the world. I'm a former United States Fulbright professor, and that opportunity to engage people and students around the world was fantastic. And let me just say this. Many of the places I've gone around the world, from India to Sri Lanka, Ireland, Indonesia, and beyond, have all been absolutely free. Think about that for a moment. I had an opportunity to travel the world, engage with students, faculty, and staff at other universities at no cost. And so when we think about the ways of interacting, that's really my path in about 45 seconds.
Thank you so much. We have a question in the chat box. The question says, would you recommend applying for the FFCEP program during your final year as a PhD candidate, or should it be earlier?
I can answer that one. It's best probably when you're at that more advanced stage, so right before you're going to be graduating. So I think, yes, in your final year, it'd be great. It depends, though, what your discipline is. So, for example, in our College of Science, they tend to look at postdocs. They want to have some. They tend to. When they looking to hire faculty, they're looking at those individuals who are in a postdoc program or just finishing up a postdoc or have some sort of postgraduate experience. So it depends on what your discipline is, but generally speaking, yes, within your last year, certainly FFCEP would be a great point for you to get your materials together to kind of start engaging in that job search process. But for some of the other disciplines, you would be more competitive if you have a postdoc going into the FFCEP program.
So I think you answered the second question as well. How soon should we start creating this portfolio?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, of course, is that yesterday, whether it's for the future faculty program, a faculty position, or otherwise, remember, start as soon as you can, because obviously this provides you with a strong foundation to revisit later. This allows you an opportunity to perfect it, if you will, to a manner in which that accurately reflects where you begun to where you are today. So think about it as an arc, where you are today versus where you see yourself tomorrow in 3 to 5 years from today. So sooner rather than later is always a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And being able to have those documents and sharing them with maybe your mentor, your sponsor, or other colleagues to get some feedback on is certainly helpful prior to when you have a deadline to actually have to apply to something. So kind of having those documents ready so that when an opportunity does come up, they are refined, they are, someone has looked them over, there aren't mistakes in them. It's really, spells out what you want to do in your cover letter, things like that. So certainly the sooner you can get those materials together, the better.
Thank you. Another great question is, how common is it for doctoral students to be able to successfully apply for and get a position as a faculty member without doing a postdoc? Is it more common for teaching intensive universities rather than the research universities?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I would say here we have to think about discipline. Right. So, for example, as Lorraine mentioned, in our College of Science, the postdoc is the point of entry for a tenure track faculty position. However, when you look at our colleges of engineering and engineering technology, for instance, no postdoc is necessarily required whatsoever. And so it really just depends upon the discipline rather than the university. Rarely, for example, will you find the need for a postdoc in business or public policy, political science, or the liberal arts, art and design, and beyond. And so again, it really focuses upon the discipline more so than the university itself.
It's like in some disciplines, they look for some industry experience. So they may not be looking for postdoc experience or research experience or teaching, but they want to see that you can bring something from industry into the classroom. So it is very discipline specific.
Awesome. What are the top priority strategic plans you would suggest for a final year PhD students in order to transition, especially when there is a bit of ambiguity when exactly they would be defending?
Yeah, good one. Been there before. So here's my advice for those of you along the way. Your top priorities right now should really be focused on not only completing your dissertation and having a solidified defense date, but in addition to that, think about ways in which you can build your scholarly portfolio. Think about opportunities to present your research. Think about ways in which you can become a part of a research group. Think about ways in which you can engage students in the classroom. Think about the other ways, the teaching, the service, as well as the scholarship. Think about ways in which you can begin filling holes in that area. Because at the end of the day, this is what's really going to provide you with the most fruitful opportunities for a tenure track faculty role. Is that experience? Is that success? Is that track record? Everything else will come later. The defense date, you'll figure it out. But those other things take time to develop. So again, your plans, your strategic priority right now for your final year, teaching, scholarship, and service.
All right. We have another great question. I'm gonna read it. How does RIT engage in some of the social justice issues currently taking place in the ZIT? I have to correct myself on that. Considering that students are less likely to enroll in college due to the mounting student loan debt and the shrinking job market.
Yeah, that's a good one. So let me answer it in 2 or 3 different ways. First, along the lines of social justice, I want to be very clear in stating 2 things on behalf of the university and behalf of my office. We are largely an institution that is affirmed to the idea that race and racism exist, period. We understand the struggles of communities of color and communities of underrepresented representation across the board, and we affirm those beliefs, the thoughts, as well as the policies that led to the destruction in which we find ourselves in today. Now, going beyond the lip service for a moment, you can look at our strategic plan. Again, consult the strategic plan. In addition to our strategic plan, we're also working on another layer to that, a race and ethnicity action plan to address a lot of the issues that have taken place over the summer and beyond. This is a community-grown document. It's a community-grown support by way of inviting individuals to the table to talk about their experiences, to talk about the ways in which we can do better as a university, better as a college, better as a department, and better human beings overall. Now, in reference to the other point pertaining to student loan debt, yeah, as someone who's still paying off their student loans, again, I hear you on that one as well. One of the great things that we're doing right now at RIT, we have increased the amount of aid that has been allocated to admitted students at RIT. And so we're doing our part even when it puts us in a difficult financial situation, because we do understand that we need to be available. We must be active in these communities, particularly those who have the qualification to attend but may fall short financially. The shrinking job market, I can't comment on that. Because I think this is very industry specific. We do see some areas that continue to thrive and others not so much. But that's not my call to necessarily discuss, but I can, again, along the lines of social justice and student loan debt, speak directly to that. Lorraine, Maria, is there anything else you wish to add that I have omitted?
I was just going to add in regards to when we're talking about the shrinking job market and students not seeing college as a way to get into the jobs they want to. RIT prides itself on being a cooperative education opportunities. So in many of our disciplines, it is required for students to go on a co-op. In engineering, for example, they might have to do, I think it's 4 semesters of co-op. So they're actually being placed full-time in an engineering or similar type of role that helps with not only their on-campus, in-person kind of classroom education, but then gives them the opportunity to utilize some of those things they've learned in the classroom, in real life experiences, helps them to build up their resume as they go out to seek a job. Many of the students that have come through our office that have done these types of co-ops end up getting full-time placement within the co-ops companies that they've done those co-ops for. So it's one of the things that kind of sets RIT apart from some of the other institutions.
Awesome. Are there other questions that are out there? Do not be shy to ask your questions. We have about 10 minutes left, and I would appreciate any final words from Donathan and his team. If other questions do pop up, I'll chime in so that, you know, give some time. We've got 10 minutes.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I'll save the worst for last. So that'll be me. And instead offer that either Maria or Lorraine, please, if you have any thoughts, I'll follow you thereafter.
Sure thing. So one thing I'll just kind of mention is if you guys do have questions that haven't been covered here, you didn't want to kind of raise them in this setting, please feel free to reach out to us via email or simply give us a phone call. We're happy to chat with you. A lot of, obviously, our experience is dealing within RIT, but we have a broader sense too of what goes on in other institutions and how the search process plays out. If you're on the job market and you are applying to positions and you're not getting any sort of feedback from search committees, don't be afraid to reach out to them. Chances are they are just kind of going through applications, but if you have specific questions about a position before you apply or after you apply, certainly reach out to those search committee members. In most cases, there's an email listed on the job posting. And for those of you that are in the job market too, take a good look at what those position requirements are and try to match up your cover letter to what those requirements are. Specifically, if they're asking for certain amounts of experience or types of experience, sometimes those experiences can be kind of buried and hidden within your CV. And if you're not calling them out within your cover letter, the search committee may not be able to connect the dots right away. So keep those couple of those things in mind.
I guess the only thing I will also add is we have a great city with a lot to offer, not only within the community itself. RIT's community is like a small little city within the city, and there's tons of stuff to do within the RIT community as well as outside of that. So if you are in the job market, it's definitely an area for you to check out.
Great. So bringing up the rear would be yours truly. And so let me just kind of say this. When you think about the presentation and everything you heard today, I know there was a lot of information put before you, but consider the following for just a moment. RIT is one of the few universities in America that has an office solely dedicated to the recruitment of an excellent and diverse professoriate. We actively seek out graduate students and postdocs from around the country to join us here on our Rochester, New York campus. So when you think about our priorities, when you think about our strategic initiatives, when you think about equality, when you think about social justice, when you think about eliminating systemic barriers, here we are. And I ask that not only to toot our own horn, but think about that when you apply to any other institution. Ask the questions, not only regarding recruitment, because everyone does something along the lines of recruitment, but think about long-term, along the lines of retention. What are universities doing? What programs and people and resources do they have in place to keep you once you have crossed the threshold to their campus? There's a lot of conversation going on across America right now on faculty diversity. I'm aware of it, and I'm sure you are as well. But just remember, at the end, beyond the lip service, look specifically at the resources that people and programs are available to sustain your long-standing success. I think what you'll find here at the Rochester Institute of Technology is a university dedicated to your success, dedicated to your thriving, far beyond your initial point of entry.
With that said, wow, that's powerful. Thank you, Donathan and your team for presenting to us. Please follow up if you have any questions. There are some great people at RIT, and we appreciate the partnership with them. This ends the session. If you have any questions, just let us know. You all take care and have a great day.